All right, Awesemo. Here we are. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with Kyle Dvorchak as we get ready for Sunday night football. It is going to be a good one, we hope. We have the Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. This is a matchup that everybody is familiar with. Kyle, we've had a crazy day. We've had tight ends and reserve quarterbacks. Can we call the Broncos quarterback a reserve quarterback? What's going on? We've got Tampa Bay storming back as Tyreek Hill is in line to potentially threaten the single-game NFL receiving record. We got all sorts of stuff going on with the afternoon slate. I thought it was going to be boring after that first half.
Yeah, the first half was quiet, but luckily, for the most part, Derrick Henry going for nearly 50, I think it was like 40-something. That was intense. And I had a little bit of Henry. Nothing, didn't go crazy on him. I mostly went with Chubb, which was good. But when you look at the opportunity cost of not getting Henry, kind of had to have Henry. So didn't have a ton of him, but I have a lot of Tyreek Hill, a lot of this late slate in general. I just thought this late slate, this game was going to kind of be the nuts. And maybe it's shaping up to be that way, especially with all of it going to Tyreek Hill. And yeah, the tragedy of errors that had to befall Denver to get in a practice squad wide receiver. It's not like he was a starting wide receiver or a practice squad quarterback. He was neither. He was both a practice squad player and a wide receiver. So brutal there. And, shame that Saints also had to start a tight end or whatever.
Yeah, it was one of those really weird ones. So hopefully everybody pivoted to, and we're just going to talk about this for a minute and let everybody collect. Tonight's game, while exciting, is very consolidated when it comes to the plays. So we're just going to let everybody gather here, and then we're going to race through it. So we're totally organized on that. But I do hope everybody pivoted to the Saints if they still had them left in your survivor pools. That worked out. I was patting myself on the back because I went away from Minnesota. Well, Minnesota ended up winning. And then speaking of, you know how I always have trouble getting my lineups uploaded? Oops, main slate, one lineup. Yikes. Had Dalvin Cook, not so great. Had Robinson, that was nice. Kelsey is the tight end, Mahomes as the quarterback. Those were my only late slate guys. There was no point in swapping. How do you go down from that pair? So yeah, ran a single lineup in. That's going to potentially be an expensive mistake here. I'm starting to call a little bit back as we get the production here from Mahomes. Thank you for Tom Brady making this one a little close. We get another Mahomes touchdown. It goes to Kelsey. I'm dodging a bullet. Otherwise, going to lose about 60%. This is a shame, I say, because the last 2 weeks, my cash game main slate lineup was a 90th percentile lineup. That would have been the weeks to have this happen. Now when I'm running with about a 55 percentile lineup. So I'm starting to cash some head-to-heads. But just cautionary tale. Be careful. Fortunately, I had at least my cash game lineup. All right. We have a bunch of people in here. Shout out to everybody who watched the show today. We had an all-time record. It was like 4,600 concurrent viewers. I see we got just shy of 500 in here now. We're going to start in on the game and go from there. So reminder, we are sponsored by No House Advantage. We'll talk about them shortly. And then no screaming deals. You guys, you missed out on the Mayflower deal. Just $1 for the NFL Weekly Express Pass. It's still $3.95. And by the way, we have Showdown tonight. We have Showdown on Monday, and we have Showdown on Tuesday. So definitely check that out. As long as there are still a few healthy players there for Baltimore and Pittsburgh, we will have that game. Tonight, nothing really crazy from the injuries other than Nick Foles is out, which means Mitch Trubisky back in our lives. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is active. He will be playing. Foles was inactive. Javon Wims, who was suspended for the last 2 games for his on-field altercation, he is inactive tonight. And I believe that was really it. There was a defensive guys here or there. Irvin, the wide receiver / running back for Green Bay, he's out, or he's inactive tonight, but no real surprise there. So let's start it off here. Implied total, when I pulled this down, of 17.25 for the Chicago Bears. Nick Foles out with a hip injury. So we've got Mitch Trubisky, who is coming back here. And I wanted to point out, and this was not just me, but several people put this on Twitter, but I do want to credit Lee Sharp PFF for this. He said Mike Glennon was benched for Mitch Trubisky, who was benched for Nick Foles, who was benched for Gardner Minshew, who was benched for Jake Luton, who was benched for Mike Glennon. A lot of people put that out there, but he had the circle of life picture. So here we are, just a comedy of errors. The last and only play in the last 6 weeks that Trubisky had was a designed shotgun rush where he hurt himself. 2020, Mitch Trubisky, perfume the pig. You're on mute.
There was a train going by my place, and you might have been able to hear it when I was last talking. So I had to let the Mahomes train go by, as we call it. So, Trubisky is bad, but the thing is, like, Nick Foles really hasn't been that good either. Like, we think of him as, at least in my mind, I kind of think of him as a good enough quarterback, but he really hasn't been. He has just been coasting on the fact that this team passes at a rate that is higher than any other team in the league. So am I actually that concerned with the move from Trubisky, or the move to Trubisky from Foles? I think maybe at best it's a modest downgrade. Maybe the biggest downgrade is that although they will be like dropping back at the highest rate in the league, as we've seen them do, maybe they don't pass at such a high clip specifically because a handful, 5-10% of the dropbacks anytime Trubisky is pressured could convert into rush attempts. So for that reason, I actually think Trubisky arguably is more attractive at quarterback than Nick Foles is, just because like rushing yards are the Konami code. They're the cheat code for quarterbacks. It's just access to points that Nick Foles doesn't really have at all. He has no chance of getting like 20 rushing yards or anything. So maybe a modest improvement for the quarterback position itself for the Bears. Outside of that, maybe a modest downgrade, but Nick Foles wasn't that good. The reason we like the Bears is because they throw a lot, or if you have a reason to like the Bears. I don't want to put that bad juju on anyone saying they actually like the Bears, but they throw a lot. They throw a lot, and that's exciting. In the first 2 games, I know it was kind of a different look to the offense. We really hadn't experienced the Darnell Mooney breakout yet, but Anthony Miller wasn't doing much either. We saw crazy market share numbers, both from like a yardage and like air yardage and a target total perspective from Allen Robinson. Was he connecting with Trubisky? Not really, but I kind of think that's the more fluky aspect, because Nick Foles, like I said, Nick Foles isn't that good either. Trubisky is probably worse, sure. Call it whatever you want. I don't really care. We saw the volume for Allen Robinson. So the change to Trubisky is just meh for me. It's a running quarterback, which is the biggest change. Outside of that, the accuracy is a modest swing at best.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. So no stone unturned is what we're going to do here. So we're going to go over everything here with a fine-tooth comb. There's not a lot. There's some very obvious plays, and then it's complete dart throws from that point. I don't even want to say touchdown hunting. When you're playing with the Seahawks, potentially with Philadelphia, we'll get that primetime matchup tomorrow. That's touchdown hunting, right? When you're playing with New Orleans, that's touchdown hunting. It goes to a bunch of different players. There's not going to be a lot of touchdowns tonight, and they're going to be relatively consolidated. We may get a little flexibility here from Green Bay, but even then, it's going to be likely. Obvious is hard to say because we know anything can happen in these games. So here were my notes as we're wrapping up Mr. Trubisky here. So I wanted to go back because it's been a while since we've seen him. So since I already talked about that. The Packers have the 19th rated passing DVOA. They've allowed only Deshaun Watson to top the 300-yard milestone. However, cherry picking because 4 other quarterbacks have gotten at least 280, but they didn't exceed 300. So want to put that out there. Trubisky, on the other hand, has topped 280 passing yards just 8 times in 44 career starts. He is averaging 21.2 yards per game rushing. So there's a bit of a misnomer that we think he's a good running quarterback. He's okay. He has the ability to do it, but now it's more out of panic, sheer terror, or the plays just breaking down. I don't know that it's an asset. 7 scores on the ground there. So that's kind of what we have there. So before the show, I was talking to Kyle about what groups I was going to make, who I was going to put Trubisky. I am doing 1 pass catcher with him. I was going to change up that rule, but then Kyle reminded me that David Montgomery does at least get targets. He is pretty much the only running back. He did miss week 10 with a concussion. They had to bye last week, so he's going to be going against the Packers, 20th rushing DVOA. Green Bay is actually allowing the 3rd most points to opposing running backs, both in full and half PPR. The position is seeing 23 carries, 102 yards, and just over a touchdown per game with 55 receiving yards on 7.5 targets for 6 receptions. I want to point out last week, there was no David Montgomery. We saw Ryan Nall, Cordarrelle Patterson, and Lamar Miller basically kind of do nothing. Ryan Nall, I believe, what did he have? Like 1 carry for no gain. Lamar Miller had a target or 2 and a catch. I don't think he had a carry. Patterson had 12 carries for 30 yards. And then Artavis Pierce, the rookie, had 3 go for 9. There's really no, with Montgomery healthy, do you want any of those guys? Maybe Patterson.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Maybe Patterson. You could definitely.
Who got his 8th career kickoff touchdown, kick return touchdown in the last game.
Yeah, he was double dipping, man. I like Patterson on that slate, and he's good, but he doesn't really get used in a way that's awfully conducive for fantasy points whenever they have a healthy stable of backs, which they do. So maybe he goes out, and he's been basically playing as a position hybrid, more leaning towards running back. Just his targets come out of the backfield, and his carries are largely backfield carries. So like, is four targets, 4 catches like a really conducive to a ceiling and like kick return duties? I don't think so. I really think he's kind of even an easy bait. He's a guy who, if he comes in at like super low price, low owned, I'm like, sure, you could punt him off on in the millie or something, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think, well, one, because he's priced up at 4,400, like he projects as a pretty horrible value. He's a backup at best running back, and even then, not a perfect replacement backup running back. His price is too much. He projects as a bad value. I really have anything outside the millie, and you're playing him knowing that it's a bad play that will get you unique. Anything outside of that, no interest. And Montgomery's, yeah, he's going to get a lot of work. He's not very good with his work, but like that's his shtick, and that's kind of okay sometimes. Like I think we kind of overrate that. One, if he goes out and gets 6 catches, it really won't matter a ton how many yardage or touchdowns he get. He could end up being in the optimal. And 2, like efficiency is so fluky. I think the Bears project to be a less efficient running attack than most other teams, granted. But if he's going to go out and get 16 carries, 4 targets, I kind of like him even despite the fact that he really, I think, has like 1 game about 20 fantasy points.
All righty then. So reminder, just make sure I get over this. Our sponsor is No House Advantage. We are doing free projections for their site, which is oftentimes helpful. Hey, it's free, but you can go on over there, nohouseadvantage.com. When you sign up, use the promo code Awesemo. They will match you up to your first $20 in deposit, and refer a friend. You can get another $5. How does it work there? Well, it's a prop wager, so the player props. Now, why do they say No House Advantage? Because we're not going against the house. We're going against other gamers. This is peer-to-peer format, just like we see on DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, etc. But we're playing, head-to-head 50-50s and GPPs going against our friends. So basically what you do is they put out, depending on the contest, between 25 and 40 questions of player props. And then you choose over or under, and then you put confidence rating on those. So you choose 5 of them. And then from there, that creates your score. If you are correct, if you're wrong, well, there are no points for being wrong. But from there you go. It's relatively straightforward. Those are kind of the fun things to think about there. But nohouseadvantage.com. They have a very elegant website and a slick app. So definitely check that out. All right, receivers here. We kind of want to talk about Mooney a little more. He's the wild. So Mooney and Miller are the wild cards that we're going to have tonight. I saw someone in chat say, hey, they get targets. What do they do with them? Great question. They are getting targets. So
they are.
We are sort of obligated to discuss them. So the Green Bay has done a solid job against wide receivers. Richie James, 184 yards. Adam Thielen, 110. Randall Cobb, 95. And Oz, we'll call him, with 86. Olamide Zacchaeus. I hope I said that.
Olamide Zacchaeus, I believe.
Zacchaeus. All right. They're the only people with more than 67 yards in a game against the Packers. Allen Robinson has at least 9 targets in 8 of his 10 games. After that, Miller and Darnell Mooney have absolutely been splitting the workload. Not to a lot of success, but it's really those 3 guys. How are we breaking this down? Because if we start looking at Adams, Rodgers, and if you go with Robinson or Trubisky, you are now playing the scrubs. These guys qualify as the scrubs, not the true discount dandy Let's not even call them discount dandy. We'll call them the dirt bags. Well, they are making a lot of money, but we're going to call them the dirt bags for tonight. The lint, the dust bunnies, the things we pull out of our pocket and say, that's what I got to pay with. Okay, we're in trouble now. What do you want to do here with the Chicago trio of wide receivers?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing is that Allen Robinson's like his overall market share numbers, both target share and air yard share, kind of come like borderline crashing back to earth, given their like early season highs, because we've seen a pretty consistent rotation of two, like undoubtedly, like I think they're probably pretty talented receivers, and like Darnell Mooney doing what he's done as like I believe a day 3 rookie, and Anthony Miller like has been fine. Both of them draw targets and run a decent amount of routes. I believe they're at like 56 and 57 targets on the year, so they draw enough targets on their routes that it actually has kind of had a negative impact on Allen Robinson. It's been a while since he had a blow-up game. I think it really depends on if you see that trend continuing. I kind of think it does, just because like they have these young wide receivers, Anthony Miller and Darnell Mooney, who they spent draft capital on, and now they're drawing targets. Like there's no reason to project that to go back down. And like I talked about earlier, I do think some of the dropbacks get converted. Instead of pass attempts, they get converted into rush attempts by Mitch Trubisky. So I'm kind of not super interested versus the field. I think he's like still perfectly fine play. Our prior on Robinson is strong enough that we should expect him to draw a decent amount of targets. I do think though there have been like some cracks in the armor of him just pushing his way through with targets because of the presence of Mooney and Miller. They draw about the same amount of targets, but Mooney gets way more air yards on a per target basis, like 5 more air yards per target. So I think his upside's a lot greater. You have to pay a little bit more for him, but I think it's generally worth it. And Allen Robinson, someone I guess just based on my affinity for Mooney and a little bit for Miller as well, of the trio, I think his price is probably the most prohibitive. And I like when I look at paying up, do I really want to use one of the few places I can pay up at to go for a bear? In my opinion, no. I'd rather spend that money on like use most of the money. It's not quite the same price, but use most of that money to get to an Aaron Jones, Rodgers, or Devontae.
All right, my favorite part of the show, I am going to, for DraftKings here, drop in. We go 10, we go 20. I lost a lot of money, and you guys didn't fill up all 20 last week. I'm going to drop in 10 $1 head-to-heads for Showdown. Username EMac. Been around long enough. Don't have to have my own numbers after my own name, but I'm going to drop those in there. You guys feel free to jump in. I believe I think it's Melissa who's a grudge match with me. We're 1-1-1. She's been keeping track. So, and then she makes fun of me when she wins. So, as she should. Yeah,
deservedly so. Deservedly so.
Of course. That goes without saying. That is a little bonus. So I'm going to drop those in there. They are created now. Tight ends. This is another marginal spot, but again, no stone unturned. Jimmy Graham is tied for 3rd overall on the team with 56 targets. I forget if it's Miller or Mooney he's tied with because they're separated by 2, and I forget which one had 58. The rest of the tight ends combined, 25. Over the last 3 games, Cole Kmet is the only other player at this position who has received a target. That's important. He's super cheap. I don't hate him as much. Oh, now Melissa's messaging me. Yes, she's watching and she's ready to scoop one of my games. So there we go. Make sure you get one of those, Melissa. All right. So I said both are in play. Jimmy Graham's 5,200 on DK, 800 on DK for Kmet. Graham's a little tougher on FanDuel. He's 10,000, and then Kmet is 6,000. So I don't know that there's enough touchdown equity there for me and Jimmy Graham at 10,000. I'm willing to roll the dice a little bit at that cheaper price. Proportionally, when you go look at the different salary caps, the different lineup constructions on the 2 sites, et cetera, both the tight ends actually are, for me, more in play on DK than they are on FanDuel. If you are building 150 on FanDuel, I'd roll the dice with Kmet at the site minimum, or 6,000. So 1,000 above the site minimum. But I'm not confident. I probably need to get to about lineup 75 before he cracked a 150 build.
Yeah, I think what you said about just the overall pricing structure, making them more beneficial on DraftKings specifically. Obviously, the scoring structure, we're not targeting pass catchers as much on FanDuel. But when you look at proportionally how much $800 of your salary is on DraftKings versus like, would you say $6K on FanDuel or whatever, like just the numbers simply don't add up. Like you need a touchdown. And even then, is it exactly happening on this slate? Like it wouldn't shock me to see, and it actually doesn't happen a lot, where we see a 200 or a 400 guy end up putting up 6 points, and like you're like, oh, his points per dollar is great. Well, there's usually someone for 2.2K who put up like 8-10 points, and there was a better way to construct that roster. This could be a slate where that's not quite the case, just because of how concentrated. I mean, really, both of these offenses are. When you see like the long-term history of Allen Robinson putting up points, I think he could be like the just number one receiver by an incredible margin. Do I project that? Less so this week, but that could happen. And then obviously on the Packers, like there are 3 incredibly expensive, incredibly good players to target. Would it shock me if a Cole Kmet 5-point game, 2 catches for 30 yards or whatever, is enough just to get you to get up to more of the great plays? Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. I guess no, it wouldn't shock me. So I think he's in play for that reason. I think on most slates, I am generally avoiding these kind of guys. I think it's like week 4 or 5, somewhere in that range, where Cole Kmet came out and had a decent game. It was like all in the first drive, and he didn't end up making the optimal lineup anyways, just because, like I said, most times the optimal lineup features some sort of mix of guys in the like low price range down to like 1,000 or 2,000, and then pushing up to the expensive guys that you obviously want to have. These guys are so cheap for a reason, because they never see the ball. Cole Kmet did see 3 targets last week, only caught 1 of them. Maybe that's a trend going forward. Like you said, they rolled out Javon Wims, so maybe they run a little bit more 2 tight end if they ever take one of their trio of receivers off. Maybe. I think he's viable. Am I getting to a ton of him? Definitely not. And Jimmy Graham, his price was up recently on Showdown slates. I'm glad it's come back down a little bit, because he was like, he gets targets like a number 2 receiver on this team. They're basically all getting targeted at a similar amount, but his yards per target is below 6. Like, he is so inefficient that it's targets don't matter for him. What you're seeking is a touchdown, and he does lead the team in red zone targets, but that's really his only way, in my opinion. Unless the slate breaks really weird, that is his only way of making out the lineup, especially when like dollars on this slate are at a premium. You are trying to do anything you can get to get up to multiple of these Packers. So unless he scores a touchdown, you're really drawing dead, because he just has no explosive playmaking ability. But can he score a touchdown? Absolutely. He's done it a few times this year. And, the volume indicates that if they're throwing to anyone in the red zone, it's going to be him. So I'm not a huge fan of either tight end. On DraftKings, I'm fine with getting them. On FanDuel, they are pretty deep on the priority list, honestly.
All right, we're at about 1,100 concurrent. Please do hit that like button. It does help us out. You can also hit the subscribe button. That is very key. It helps you. The nice thing, I have subscribed to a handful of YouTube channels, but it's nice. I have YouTube as one of my default tabs that pops up when I start up my browser, and I can see over on the left side of the tab if any of the channels that I watch are live. It has a little red dot if they're streaming live. So I like to look at a couple news things and then a couple sports things. So that's helpful. You can also hit the notification bell, which will send you a little alert each time we go live here. You don't have to turn that on, but what this does is it does get it to your home page. A lot of times, even with the pesky YouTube algorithm, even if you are subscribed to a channel, it doesn't always put it on your home page for you. It's an easy way to see it. So check that out. We're on our drive for 50,000. We are ideally going to get there by the end of the year. Let's see. Let's make a nice push here. We appreciate all of you guys. And hey, shout out to everybody. We were approaching 4,700 concurrent viewers for NFL today. Crested over 4,600. That is an all-time record, I believe, for any sport at this point. I know we've flirted with 4,000 a few different times for NBA, but wow, thank you. That helps us out a ton, and we truly, truly appreciate you guys and gals. Unless Melissa beats me, and I may not respect her, yes. Appreciate her, no. All right. Defense, yikes. No stone unturned. We have plenty of time. So let's talk about this. Green Bay has allowed 4 sacks in their last 5 games. Only the Buccaneers this season have gotten them for more than 1. The entire season, let me repeat that. The entire season, only Green Bay, I said Green Bay, only the Battle of the Base. Only Tampa Bay got Green Bay for more than 1 sack. Their 9 turnovers, 3rd fewest in the league. On the flip side, though, we like to think of the monsters of the Midway having some playmakers here and there. They have just 11 takeaways and 21 sacks. Both are kind of middle of the pack. Do you even want to muck around here with the Bears? I looked at putting them in my initial cash game build. I had both defenses a kicker, and I needed to because I was doing Adams, Robinson, and Rodgers. I've gone away from that because I didn't want both defenses. I would rather go Cole Kmet and hope he gets 1 for 17 or something of that nature and outperforms the Green Bay the Chicago defense. Anything on the monsters of the midway, or would you like to throw some hosannas towards future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, like you said, they don't take sacks or turn the ball over. I mean, it's Rodgers. Rodgers, at least this year and generally throughout his career, is like I've heard it described as like the legs of a stool. You can like hold onto the ball, you can throw into tight coverage, you can throw it away. Like holding onto the ball typically results in like sacks, throwing in tight coverage, turnovers, and throwing it away is the one that like doesn't add value on a throw, but it also gives defenses like zero chance to make plays, obviously. No matter how good the Bears defense is, Rodgers plays in a way that is not conducive to opponents putting up good fantasy points because he doesn't take sacks and he doesn't throw interceptions. So even if like I think like Russell Wilson's kind of a fun quarterback to target with opposing defenses because no one plays him anyways, but he takes a ton of sacks. He's thrown a few interceptions this year. Rodgers just plays in such a low volatility way that not really any interest in the Bears. The Packers side, like you play Mitchell Trubisky, of course I'm going to have some interest in the defense. It's not like they're not the cheapest defense, which should be expected. But I do think maybe a contrarian way to build. I mean, definitely one of the contrarian ways to build is just going to be really avoiding that low. Like people are going to pay for Cole Kmet. People are going to pay for some of these cheap guys to try and get up to jam as many studs. Fade one stud, potentially play the defense, like an Aaron Jones captain plus defense lineup. I think those will be a bit more unique. So I like the Packers defense. I would say you can even argue to play them in captain. I know like something Alex has targeted, but problem for me is one, when you play them in captain, you forego other awesome captains. And two, you're probably just playing all the good plays anyways. And this is something he talked about that I kind of found really interesting is that when he was like building lineups and he would have like the optimizer play defense at captain, he just got the chalk the rest of the way down. They were still duped. So it becomes hard to find like on large field tournaments, at least, even when you think you're being really weird and playing defense at captain, like you have to do other really weird and mathematically suboptimal things to get the right build. So I think I'd probably not even be playing them at captain on this slate. If it was a lower, like if their offense wasn't as good, maybe I think you could get away with it. I don't see a scenario in which like you can build a unique defense captain lineup and then also the defense captain lineup still doesn't like get beat out by Aaron Jones, even if he doesn't have a great game. Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, same thing.
All right. So yeah, God, Aaron Rodgers. So 29 touchdowns for Rodgers. Only Russell Wilson has more. He has 30. He's going tomorrow night. I do want to point out, you mentioned Russell Wilson, take some sacks, throw some picks, especially recently. I do want to point out if you are playing that primetime slate, give a little look towards the Seattle defense. Philadelphia allowing the most sacks and the third most turnovers. And tomorrow night, they are going to be putting Jalen Hurts under center without Carson Wentz on the field. That'll be the first time. Per Roto-World, he had played 31 snaps so far this season, but Carson Wentz has always been on the field when he's done it. Huh. Is this a series or two? Does he get his own drive? Is this situational? Who knows? They're half a game out, right? Of the playoff spot in the NFC least. What are they going to do? Whoever gets it gets creamed in the first round. So who knows what they're going to do? But just want to put that out there because there are some decent contests there for that tonight to Monday night, and then there will be DK's already got some up for the Monday night to Tuesday night. So do give that some consideration. Let's see here. Rodgers 6th in the league with 289 passing yards per game, multiple touchdowns in every game except for one. What was it? Battle of the Bay, Tampa Bay, the one team that got him for more than one sack. On FanDuel, I think he's the easy MVP. On DraftKings, I'm vacillating between him and Devontae Adams. I've ultimately landed on Rodgers. He's a little bit cheaper, and that for me gets him there. Let's talk running backs as we transition over there. We've got Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Last week, they both had 30 snaps. The Bears have allowed just two running backs to rush for 100 yards in their last 19 regular season games. So reaching back into last season. Let's see, week 10. So 2 games ago, it was Jones 41, Williams 31 for their snaps. So we're seeing them kind of splitting it. It's about 2-1 for the opportunity. So Jones had 10 targets, 9 catches, 79 yards. Williams just had 4 catches for 29. But he got a touchdown. Jones is out getting the rushes 2-1 for that, and he's gotten the score. The price, Williams is just so much cheaper. I am giving him the nod over Jones, but that comes down to lineup construction because I would prefer Rodgers and Adams on my team. I have not bothered with the rule saying excluding Jones and Williams from the same lineups, just because Williams is cheap enough. If I get Jones, I'm not that worried about it. I don't think I'll have a lot of Aaron Jones tonight. That means the field probably won't have a lot of Aaron Jones. That means he's probably an interesting guy for captain because we have seen multiple touchdown games from him. And if this is a bit of a slugfest and Green Bay can just move the ball on the ground, which there is the potential for that even against the Bears, all of a sudden I could be in trouble by going heavy on the passing game. Aaron Jones, I truly don't know what to do with him. My main lineup won't have him. I think I'd need to get to 5 lineups before I have him. But then what weighted percentage of the portfolio? That's the real question, Kyle. That's the real question.
I think for me, it depends on what kind of field you're playing in. Like you said, if you're just building a cash lineup, I would understand why you would not necessarily feel the need to go there. I think the really interesting thing is, given his price and given the price of Davante Adams, it seems difficult. Not impossible, but it seems difficult. Just their flex prices alone are 12.6 for Davante Adams, and Aaron Jones a little over 10K. Obviously 1.5x at captain. It seems very difficult for both of them to be in the optimal lineup, especially like when you think that Rodgers probably has a very good chance of being the optimal lineup because of the way that quarterbacks score. There's like kind of more high floor, maybe cap ceiling versus a guy like Adams. So I think if Aaron Jones is getting there, he's probably doing it by stealing 2 touchdowns potentially away. And stealing, he's earning his touchdowns, but those are touchdowns that Davante Adams cannot get. So for that reason, and he can even do it through receiving. So I think you can play Rodgers with, Aaron Jones at captain. Not only does pricing necessitate almost that you can't play them together, at least that it makes it difficult to, but the way they score indicates that if one goes off, the other one is less likely to have a good game because they are so built on touchdowns. We see them both scoring touchdowns at such a high clip. This offense produced a lot of touchdowns, so it's not like I don't think you can target them like, oh, they're regression candidates. They're not going to score as many touchdowns. Maybe that is true, but also their offense puts up a lot of points. They're way better than the opposing team. So I would say for me, I think Aaron Jones as the touchdown thief is like the ideal leverage play in very large field tournaments. We're just going to see so much ownership gravitating towards, and rightfully so, the passing game here. It's looking like, 30, 45, pushing up against 50%, 45% ownership for either of Adams or Rodgers in captain. You're only getting 12% Aaron Jones. He's like direct leverage off of the captain lineups of both of those guys. So I don't love Aaron Jones. Like you said, I think if we're looking at like Adams, Rodgers, Jones, he's probably the odd man out until you get to your deeper lineups. But if you're playing in large field tournaments, I think he is probably like the perfect leverage play off of, almost half the field attacking 2 specific guys.
So how do you feel about going with Jones in lineups without Rodgers or without Adams?
Yeah, I don't think you can really play. I'm probably not playing because I'm not playing like 150, so I can tell you what most of my lineups look like. I'm not playing, I don't think, any Aaron Jones captain plus Davante Adams in the same lineups. I think you can still play Rodgers because Jones is so involved in the passing game. Yeah, I just think like that can get there, especially because there are other ways for Rodgers to get there. He can throw a touchdown to a Robert Tonyan or a Jay Sternberger, but you really need that touchdown and the 100-yard bonus at a minimum for like a Davante Adams to get there. So I'm fine with playing Rodgers with either combination of them. Obviously, Rodgers makes much more sense with Davante Adams, and I'm fine in the largest field tournaments, double fading, Davante and Rodgers, going with like a Jones one pass catcher and maybe just run a lot of Bears or something. So he's not mandatory. Rodgers isn't mandatory in my Jones lineups. I'll still have some of that mix though. And I don't think I'm playing any Aaron Jones plus Davante Adams.
I didn't set any rules against it. I'm assuming pricing and randomness and various things will take care of for the most of the part, not putting that combination together. All right. That, I think, hits everything we want to talk about. On running backs,
kickers. Talk about kickers, the boots.
Well, we'll talk about them. We got to do wide receivers next. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Achilles, he is playing. We've got Alan Lazard, who missed almost 2 months with a core injury that required surgery. He was close to returning a few times. Finally back. He was solid. I was my notes. Solid on the field Looked good. We've seen him in practice. We've seen him doing all this stuff. Just didn't get that many targets. He had one target. Let me see. Four targets, got 18 yards. So I'm okay with Lazard. I'm okay with Valdez-Scantling. I think this pushes Equanimeous St. Brown sort of out of the picture here. But what do we do with Robert Tonyan? So I'm going to kind of include him with the wide receivers. He very heavily, what did he get? Like 4 or 5 touchdowns in his first 3 games. Went 6 weeks without one, then got one last week. Caught all 5 targets for 44 yards. Then you got Sternberger and Mercedes Lewis, who are afterthought lottery tickets at this point. What do you putting it that way? They have 11 targets combined in the last month. Tonyan has 17. So I'm not worried about those other guys. Tanyan's the only guy. So we got Tonyan, Valdez-Scantling, Lazard, and then obviously Devontae Adams is arguably, well, we'll see. We'll see if he answers Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
From this afternoon.
Seems like a tall order. Tyreek hit 60 DK at the end of that game. So I guess you could safely assume that he won't. But in the context of this slate, we're not looking at that. In the context of this slate, Devontae Adams is like the stud among all studs. And the interesting thing is that like I'm generally just looking to play Devontae over Rodgers. They have played, I believe, in 7 games together this year, probably the start and finishes, I believe. Adams is outscored like 5 times. He has 2 games over 40, I believe. I don't think Rodgers has a single one above 35. The pricing obviously could sway you, but I don't think their gap just in the flex alone, because I can't do that kind of 1.5x mental math, but Rodgers being 1,200 less, like it's notable, but I don't think it's enough to make me say like, oh, well, a 40-point game like from Devontae. What if Rodgers gets 32? Like you're still probably going Devontae. It's still worth the money. So for me, almost always playing Devontae over, at least in tournaments, playing Devontae over Rodgers. I have a slight lean towards Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Him and Lazard are priced in a range that, again, I don't think there's a preference between the two. I think it's more like 400 more. Pricing, if it gets you something that's notably better, go ahead and make the switch. We did see last week that Marquez Valdez-Scantling ran a route on like the majority of the dropbacks, like a high majority of the dropbacks for Rodgers. It looked like they were still working Lazard back into the lineup. And like you said, he didn't see like a bevy of targets or anything. I believe it was LaFleur, though, that did say that they were going to ease him back in. Maybe that's where you get your like a little bit of contrarian leverage. I would imagine coming off like a non-notable game. Marquez Valdez-Scantling kind of popping off as of late would have him as like the far more popular player. I can pull up our ownership right now. Let's see. Who's more popular? Oh, yeah. It looks like what? Alan Lazard's more popular. Oh, I'm just playing Marquez Valdez-Scantling then. Are you kidding me? Like he ran more routes. Seems like he's getting more targets, has an incredible ADOT. If this is actually true, I'll just go our 2 through 6. It's 2 through 6%. Well, that also proves that you should probably be going with the MVS there. He's way more likely to be in the 2 through 6 like utility spot based on our Awesemo top showdown and single game plays tool. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, that is. Alan Lazard, yeah, their ownership is actually pretty much in line. It's like within 2% of each other. So given that there's not a big difference, I'm going to take the guy who's ran more routes, who's produced more recently, who's on the field more. So Marquez Valdez-Scantling pretty cleanly. Robert Tonyan is kind of the Jimmy Graham of this team, like gets enough targets to be notable, but he's kind of expensive. He's been coasting on touchdown efficiency. And more specifically, it seems fairly clear. It's a small sample. We can't infer too much on any group of 5 or 6 games. He was scoring all of his touchdowns when Devontae Adams is out. Devontae Adams comes back in and he scores 1 touchdown over the course of like 4 games. It seems like there's a bit of correlation there. I know it's a small sample and I don't try to read too much into these things, but when it's all the data we have to work with, I don't know. Robert Tonyan probably falls out. I'd rather go with either of, obviously more expensive, either of Lazard or Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and play Devontae Adams whenever you can, I guess, to cap things off.
Continuing along here, we're on to the defense. So for those of you that were worried, we got 21 minutes left, and we've run through. We'll get the defense, we'll get the kickers, we'll talk about some situations, we'll go through the player pool rankings, we'll take some questions. We got plenty of time here. Reminder, check out No House Advantage. They are the sponsor of the show. That's nohouseadvantage.com. Prop wagering, not against the house, hence the name, No House Advantage. It's against other gamers, peer-to-peer competition. Sign up with the promo code Awesemo, get $20 matched with your first deposit. Refer a friend, get another $5. Check that out. So Chicago has allowed multiple sacks in 5 of their last 6 games. Packers are averaging 2.1 per outing. Shockingly, Green Bay just has 9 takeaways this year, 28th in the league, only ahead of the Texans. They're tied with the Chargers heading into today. Feels Here's my over-under. Combined sacks and turnovers from one Mitchell Trubisky, 4.5.
4.5. I'll take the over there. I think the sacks especially get you there. Like anything can get you there. It's just not very good. Seems like a guy who would walk into sacks a lot. And if his team was losing, which they were at least 8-point underdogs, I believe, when I checked this morning on the spread, probably means they're just dropping back a lot, which has been their philosophy all season. Obviously, they lead the league, at least as of last week. They led the league in pass percentage. So when you get Mitchell Trubisky dropping back a lot, you should at least get a lot of sacks, get potentially some turnovers. Potentially that comes to a little bit of progression there with this team, not getting many turnovers, the Packers. But I don't think they're a terrible defense by any means. So for me, that says it's probably a little bit unlucky in the turnover department, and nothing says good luck in turnovers like facing Trubisky.
All right, for kickers, who we mentioned, we have Cairo Santos going for the Bears and Mason Crosby, who has, I think he's 37. He's been around forever at this point. The gray-bearded one. I'm white-bearded. He's gray-bearded. Do you have a preference between the two? Doesn't look like we're going to have to worry about any weather here in the not yet frozen tundra of Lambeau Field.
Yeah, I don't have a massive preference. I would go Crosby though. They don't attempt a ton of field goals, but I think that's mostly just because of their touchdown efficiency. They've been pretty good. Obviously they've been incredible. If you've watched Devontae Adams or Aaron Jones or Robert Tonyan or anything, Marcus Valdez-Scantling, you'll know that this team produces touchdowns at a crazy high clip. That means you don't kick a lot of field goals. And although we definitely should project the Packers to score more touchdowns on an average drive than most other teams in the NFL, I do think they probably run at least a little bit hot in terms of the amount they've scored versus the amount of field goals they've kicked. And on the other side, with an 8-point advantage, I'm really not too interested in going to Chicago's kicker. I think Crosby, both are fine, but it's not one kicker is priced vastly different than the other one or anything. So I'll just go with Crosby here because his team is projected to score more.
Yeah, and the interesting thing so field goals are very fickle. You got to get the opportunities, but as you mentioned, a lot can depend upon the team that you were playing for. I believe it was this Seahawks kicker was in a similar spot. I think going into their last primetime game, he had just 10 or 11 field goal attempts. Well, that helps when Russell Wilson has 30 touchdowns, that he's not going to see nearly as many. But I found that kind of interesting. So that's something to check out from time to time here. All right, I'm going to roll down my player list here. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Kyle's got a free article. It's on the homepage. In the prime spot, I get the one right below it, but here's kind of my notes. I go by position and then rank the entire player pool. Kyle takes a slightly different approach. He talks about certain positions where he wants to leverage things, combinations, etc. It is popular when we talk about 4-2s, 2-4s, 1-5s, 5-1. So we're going to talk about that. But here is, tell me when you disagree. This is Aaron with my rankings. Aaron Rodgers, number one. So easy call on FanDuel. Quarterbacks just have the advantage there. $1,200 discount from DraftKings. I'm going to put him in my captain spot there. Yep. Adams, I go 2. Even on touchdown heavy FanDuel, I say Adams very much in play. Allen Robinson 3. Remember, 8 of 10 games, he has at least 9 targets. So the volume should keep him there. Now we're at Mitchell Trubisky. We don't have to worry about Trubisky being pulled. Fingers crossed. I hope Tyler Bray is the backup. Then I go to Jamal Williams, $7,000 discount to Jones on DK, $5,000 discount on FanDuel. Do you hate any of the first 5? And then I get to the kickers.
But the kickers even before I guess so. This is just not
Aaron Jones and Montgomery are next. The running backs have been put down. That's who you're looking for because you
exactly
have the tournament mind. So this is you're building 3 lineups. This is kind of
I think
the rank.
I agree. Yeah, if you're just building a single 100-man contest stuff, all those rankings kind of make sense to me. If you're getting into higher contests in terms of the flex, I just think David Montgomery. I think even in the Million Maker, I don't know. I don't think you can't. I don't think you can. So I think you can play David Montgomery at captain. That's going to be 0. You're going to be competing. It's an instant way to make it likely that you're not duping lineups. He is the starting running back, not only the starting running back, but a pretty dominant market share running back. They really don't give their backups much work. He gets a ton of pass catching game. So I think for me, I'm kind of in agreement with you. And then I boost the running backs because I think they give me a little bit of leverage in tournaments. Jones off of, the pass catchers and pass throwers for Green Bay, and Montgomery off of everyone because no one is playing him.
All right, let's go back to too many tabs open, but I have most of my lineups uploaded. Just got to get the Showdown lineups in there. I do have my rules. We got 15 minutes to go here. We've got quite a few people watching now. We are up to 1,300 concurrent. Thank you. Let's hit that like button. Even better, hit the subscribe button. That puts us up on your homepage more often than not, but it always keeps you on the far left. You can tell when we're live. You'll see a little red live button. I've made YouTube one of my homepages. When I open up my browsers, and it's YouTube, ESPN, and Awesemo. Those are the 3 pages that pop up. It used to be Hotmail. Yeah. Okay, Hotmail. Lived in Washington State. Microsoft may have heard of them. Invented the internet, kind of. Sorry, Dan Quayle. But Hotmail. Yeah, we're not going to go any farther than that. I do have a Gmail account. What do you want to do here with the 5 1s and 1 5s? We're starting at the extreme edge.
Yeah, I don't really play a lot of 1-5. Like I know, like obviously anything can hit, and it has hit. It's not like you're drawing dead, just playing like, oh, I'm gonna get unique and play every $200 player. Like it hits. Hit with James Robinson in the middle of the season. I just think its odds of hitting aren't great compared to the like the rate it's owned at, which is low but not non-existent. 5-1. I think it kind of just depends on the slate. It definitely isn't a bad one for it because you have one team favored by so much. I think the more interesting decision is, I guess, like who would you pay up for? I assume you're doing with Green Bay. You'd be a sick man if you did it. Like playing 5 Bears. Not only am I going, captaining the Bears, playing 5 of them. That'd be insane. I don't think I'm doing that. You could do it in the milli or whatever. Like ways to get unique. Certainly building lineups that are simply non-duplicated. If it hits, like if your duplicated lineup hits, you're just making way less money. So you sacrifice a median projection and you say that, well, when my odds of hitting, they drop a little bit, but I know I'm not chopping. So that just means that if you win, you make lots of more money, even if you have a slightly less chance of winning. I think playing 5 Bears would be a little too crazy. Like your odds of winning would be too low for me. So I'd be going with the Packers if I were going like 5-1. I think simply it's like which of the big 3 would you fade? I think like we talked about this more, so I won't belabor it too much. And then on the other side, it's which one are you picking? Trubisky actually makes for a really interesting one because if he gets pressured a lot, I think you could run him versus Green Bay defense. And if he gets pressured a lot, it probably means that he is both putting up a lot of rushing yards because quarterbacks are getting pressured, often scrambling. Then on those scrambles, some of them are just turning into sacks. I think him and potentially just one of the punt receivers, they're not terrible plays, but going with a Mooney or Miller would be my favorite plays to go with a 5-1. Normally, I do look for someone with like a high market share numbers because if you're trailing, you're probably just throwing a lot. That would be Allen Robinson. But like I said, I'm a little concerned with his volume. And you do like by playing Allen Robinson, you're saying like by playing a 5-1, you're saying like I want to play a lot of Packers. I think they score a ton of points and way outpace the Bears. But then playing Allen Robinson, you're costing so much money that like, are you playing all of the Packers? Like you're not playing all the good Packers. So I think I'd probably rather go with either A, Trubisky, who's still expensive but cheaper, or B, just go with like a Mooney, a Miller, probably not David Montgomery, because I think it probably helps him to have a lead, which isn't great for a 5-1. I think more of what I'm looking at is like 4-2, probably more 4-2 for Packers. I think 3-3 is fine for the most part. Maybe just the biggest leverage point is like if you're playing a 3-3, it's probably, it's the most common of lineups. So going Bears captain 3-3 would be cheeky. I don't hate it. Like I said, I think like even something as crazy as David Montgomery is in play. So I don't love it. I think Trubisky is my favorite Bears captain of the night, and I'd probably be using him in all of my like Bears 3-3s.
All right. Thank you for catching me, chat. Not Dan Quayle. It was Al Gore that invented the internet. Dan Quayle was the guy that said space still a priority for NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, something like that. Yeah, sorry. Got my political gaffes a little messed up there. I want to talk 2 props here on No House Advantage. We've got, again, the free tool, the free projections. I'm going to drop those in there. There are 2 questions. We're going to focus on the quarterbacks. So they have their line set for passing yards for Aaron Rodgers at 294. The Awesemo projections, we get these from Alex himself, coming straight out of his model. He's projecting 277 yards for Rodgers tonight. The median projection, so when we run the simulation quite a bit, is 263. So knowing that, do you want to go over or under 294.5 for Rodgers?
Yeah, we're going under here. I think it's like generally something I look at in sports betting is just like how like people tend to bet overs a lot, especially on like player props where they're treating it like fantasy and like optimistic about it. Like if his team's going to be massively favored, like they could get there on efficiency, get there like Rodgers have 3 touchdowns, only go for 220 yards or something. And as they just, roll out on this lead, running Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. So because his team is not like an underdog, I think it's really difficult to see him having a massive volume night. It simply does do all of their drives come like on long bombs. That's probably how he'd get to like a crazy number, like 300. So I'll take the under, and in line with our projections too, especially when our projections are like pretty much that much in favor of the under. It's a pretty clean break towards the under. I'm not going to go against them.
All right. Well, we're going to flip this the other way. Mitch Trubisky, a 197.5 passing projected to, or that's the question on No House Advantage. We want to choose over or under. Alex is projecting Trubisky for 248.69, which is nice, but we got to remember Alex lives in Chicago. Is this influencing the model? Not sure. He does have a Trubisky jersey, I believe, as well. What do you want to do with Trubisky? 197.5. You going over? Or you going under on that one?
Yeah, I'll go with over. Like, he's a starting NFL quarterback, and like, I guess if it was like, was it Kendall Hinton or whatever, Kendall Hinton or Taysom Hill or something, but like, he's a starting NFL quarterback with like experience. The team passes right now. They pass on 66% of their plays, and they're not even like they're not the Jets at like 0-10 or whatever. Like, they're a competent-ish team. Like, they're at least their win-loss says that they haven't played in like terrible game scripts every game, and they still just decide like, we're always going to be passing. So for that reason, like, volume alone should push even a mediocre quarterback over that line, which is like incredibly low for like an actual NFL starting quarterback. He's not good, but he's not Kendall Hinton.
Right. Sorry, I went down a political wormhole here in chat. It's okay. That happens from time to time. Let's see. Put it in the questions here. We got 8 minutes left before we sign off here with the kickoff of Sunday Night Football. I'm putting my player percentages in for the Showdown slate. I have not yet made my official lineup, but I can guarantee that you're going to see me with quite a bit of Devontae Adams tonight and Aaron Rodgers. So those of you that grab my $1 head-to-heads there on DK, you will definitely be having some fun. We're going to start this one a little earlier. Who's the player that scares you the most that you're not going to have?
That I'm not going to have? I'm not playing a ton of lineups tonight, so I'm well under the field on Allen Robinson. I don't know if I have any of Allen Robinson at captain. It's mostly Packers, and then some weird dumb stuff on the Bears side of things. So it's Allen Robinson. If he returns to that mid-season Allen Robinson form, he is going to run roughshod over me, and he could, it's feasible that he could outscore, absolutely feasible that he could outscore, Devontae, he could outscore Aaron Jones. If the team just, throws 1 or 2 touchdowns to the weird guys, like if a Robert Tonyan catches one and Alan Lazard catches another, then at that point, you're probably not scoring enough that either that or Rodgers throwing 6 touchdowns. If he only throws 4 touchdowns, which is still a lot, and 2 of them go to weird guys, 1 to Jones and 1 to Adams, that's a scenario where Allen Robinson can, his market share numbers could be enough where his offense still isn't very good and it just doesn't matter. Now, we haven't kind of seen that Allen Robinson in recent weeks, so that's why I'm not playing him, but it could totally revert. And we could see 3 targets for Miller, 2 targets for Mooney, and 14 for Robinson. If that happens, I'm probably drawing dead. It will not be a good slate.
All right, just mix and match and make 4 2s, 2 4s. Not gonna push the 1-5-5-1 tonight, but I do need to make that single lineup. So let me get this back up here. Let's see. Thoughts on Miller, a captain at DK?
As long as your tournament is large enough, because it's not he's going to be on the field. He's going to get targets. I think maybe my only hesitation with him is that I think if he's getting the same amount of targets as Mooney, I'm probably just more excited to play Mooney with the higher ADOT, more speed, explosive nature. But at the same time, if Miller just gets more targets, targets are a path to upside as well. Just getting, if he got 9 a few weeks ago, he's not drawing dead for double-digit targets. I don't love him. Mooney's a preferred play for me, and I would only do it in the largest of large field tournaments. Pulling up right now, our top stacks tool gives him a less than 1% chance of making it, which is still something, and there are plays where you can find leverage on these less than 1% guys. Our top stacks tool doesn't absolutely love him, though. It's got more people playing Miller at captain than the actual chances of him being the top overall scorer. If you weight it for salary, it probably falls about in line. It's about exactly like no leverage, equal ownership versus salary weighted top percentage play.
All right, they're thinking we're sandbagging on Allen Robinson here. I got him as my third ranked play tonight.
Yeah, it's only me. You seem to, your rankings seem to like Allen Robinson.
So here's the question: Robinson or Trubisky? If you're just building one, I'm just building one right now.
I guess I'll go Trubisky. I think I'd rather look to the overall like volume he could give to other players as a path to him getting yardage and his rushing potential. And he's cheaper. So anytime a guy's cheaper and I'm trying to get all these Packers in my lineups, it's easier to go with Trubisky. So I'll go with Trubisky here. I think this may be one of my bigger stands against the field, apparently, based on chat's dislike of my opinion. This is kind of my leverage point, is not really having a lot of interest in Robinson.
All right. Mitch is plus 4,000 for the first touchdown. I'm assuming that means he must have to
has to be rushing or receiving somehow.
All right, we got 3 minutes left. I have made my lineups. I'm going to download my file and get these in. Is Cordarrelle Patterson sneaky? I think he is a viable option tonight. I don't know that he's sneaky, but I do believe he's viable.
That's a good distinction. Sneaky to me feels like, I'm going to play this guy and no one's going to notice, and I'm going to have like he's a good play. I thought like Tyler Johnson a few weeks ago, it's like early in the season at this point, as the number 3 receiver at like 200 was sneaky. Jamal Williams, I actually think Jamal Williams is probably sneaky. He's a guy who I'd call sneaky on this slate because of how much like he can take away from Aaron Jones, and how much like if you're on the field a decent amount, you're going to see, between 5 and call it 8 carries and 3 or 4 targets on the field. Aaron Rodgers, I think that makes you sneaky. Cordarrelle Patterson is like less volume than that. I think he's more expensive even, and he plays on the crap offense in this game. So viable, certainly. Sneaky, let's reserve that for players we like.
They're asking who is the cheapest possible play, or cheapest viable play. I will say Cole Kmet, and he is in my main lineup.
Yep, I agree. Cole Kmet, 3 targets last week, is a number 2 tight end. Like we see number 2 tight ends certainly hit a decent amount of the time. We see it with like Ferksers and Brates and these kind of guys, like Ivy League guys. So Cole Kmet, no, he's Notre Dame, I believe. So, in play at 800, I believe, but, drawing dead to get more than 3 catches in a game for the most part, that could be fine on this slate, especially if one of them scores, then it really is like, that's a hit. If he gets 3 for 30 and a score, almost guaranteeing he's in the optimal lineup based on how expensive the good plays on this slate are. I'm not getting to him a ton just because I think like if his ceiling is 3 catches, that's a very difficult sell for me, but I do have a little bit of him, and it makes a lot of sense in like a cash or 100 man where you don't need the nuts. You just need like for you just need to get some of the good plays in. So it makes more sense in like lower stakes, lower entries to me.
All right, got to make sure I get this lineup in. We're cutting it close. I did end up running the same lineup on all of my main slate teams. That was not fun today. So let's get this one up there, and we'll go. Scored 135 for those of you wondering. Wasn't a horrible score, but did not do anything in the tournaments. I am uploaded and good to go there. We got 1 minute to go. Please do hit that like button, the subscribe button on your way out. We're trying to get to 50,000. I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic giveaway when we do get there. We tend to do that because we like to celebrate both for us and for you guys, because you are the ones that hook us all up. Let's check out what we've got going on tomorrow. We are going to be starting off with the what do we call it? The Monday Night Strategy Show. You're going to get Lofty, Matt G, and I believe Alex Brown will be joining them once again. Alex Brown, former defensive lineman for the Chicago Bears, and he plays DFS. So we've got a guy who played in the NFL for a decade and is good at DFS. It's a rare combination, but we've got him on the show. You'll definitely want to check that out. That will go out into podcast form. You can check out all of the Awesemo podcasts, any show except for Live Before Lock goes out on our podcast network. We have a general channel, and then we've split out all the different sports, so you can choose which one you want to subscribe to. I have the general one and the NFL one myself, but basketball's coming. Basketball's less than a month away. We're going to be geared up for that, but that starts at 10. At 11, you get Josh, Adam, and Alafi on the DFS review show. They're going to be looking at what happened in tournaments, which, we're going to have some Derrick Henry, we're going to have some Cook, and then we're going to have some Pat Mahomes questions. They're going to break that all down for you. Golf is back after a little bit of a hiatus, 3 o'clock. You're going to get Jason and Jeff talking some golf. That's Jason Roslin and Jeff Ulrich. And then we do have Live Before Lock. We're starting off with Adam and Josh. They're going to be on at 6:45 talking the Seattle Seahawks and Philadelphia Eagles. We should bring Laffy on as a special guest since I'm a Seahawk fan. He's a Philadelphia fan. We should bring him on tomorrow night. Let's see if he's free. He's doing.
And I care about nothing
already.
and no teams. I care about nothing and no teams. So I'd be the perfect moderator. You'd be like,
exactly.
He'd be like, it's good that Jalen Hurts is getting snaps and stuff. I'd be like, it doesn't matter. Who cares?
Steve Largent right there. My little autographed Steve Largent photo. So just got that. We'll see what Laffy has to say. But with that, gamers, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you guys a ton. You can follow Kyle at Kyle Tweets here. I am at EMac DFS. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck. No, I forgot. I actually haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm really hungry. It is going to be, what do we have tonight for dinner? We are going to have some spaghetti squash.
Ooh, nice. Spaghetti squash is good.
But it's made like fettuccine.